right, take two. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Benjamin. Welcome to this week's episode of Benchwarmers. Day late, but not a buck short. My internet just went out a little bit ago, so I'm redoing this. But anyway, as far as the reason why I'm doing the show today as opposed to yesterday was because last night's Monday Night Football matchup between the Denver Broncos and Cleveland Browns was a matchup for the ages. Probably one of the best games that we've gotten for Monday Night Football in quite a while. But yes, JM1620, what's going on? My name is Eric, Jared Clark in the house. I don't know what the hell is going on with my internet of late, so I'm a little concerned about what's going to happen when we do flip the script later, but hopefully good things. But anyway, as per usual, starting the show off with my latest champion NBA jersey pickups and some good ones this week, actually, like really good ones. First up, one I've been trying to track down for a while, number 3 for the Miami Heat. That, of course, is Steve Smith. For Smith, I've got his Dream Team 2, all of his Atlanta Hawks, Portland Trail Blazers, etc. But this goddamn Miami Heat had been eluding me for many years and finally got in the bag. So, to which case, I got to say, there is definitely not a surplus of Miami Heat jerseys out there, with the exception of Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning, Harold Miner. Those ones were easy ones to scoop up, but the ones I'm still trying to find, DJ Ronnie Cycli, PJ Brown. Who else do I need? There's a couple other randoms out there, but I mean, the Miami Heat just didn't have a lot of offerings to begin with. So to try and find this one, hell of a time finding it. But anyway, moving on. Number 2, this one equally difficult to find just because it was only around for one season. This, of course, is number 22, Memphis Grizzlies. So the last year before they moved out, before the rebrand and when Champion lost the NBA contract, then Nike took over, then Adidas took over, etc. But this is Pride of Stanford, Brevin Knight. I've got 2 Brevin Knight Cleveland Cavaliers jerseys, so I've been trying to track this Memphis Grizzly down for quite some time. Glad I got it in the collection, so thank God for that. Anyway, let's get this show on the road. Hopefully everything's good. I'm seeing yellow bars as far as my internet connection, so I hope to God you guys can hear me. Nothing's popped up on the chat for a little bit, so I'm a little concerned about this. But anyway, let's get this show on the road. And we, of course, are starting with college football because this last weekend was Rivalry Week. Woo! And a hell of a rivalry week it was. I'm not starting in order. I'm just starting with the biggest fracas that happened over the weekend. There we go. People can hear me. That's good. The big game, Michigan versus Ohio State. Ohio State, of course, needed to win this game. More specifically for a lock-in spot for the Big Ten championship against Oregon this upcoming Saturday. But even more importantly, on top of that, is in the Ryan Day era, Ohio State into this game was, of course, against Oregon, and they needed this. And you know what? They didn't get it, and I'm kind of happy about that, just because it's not that I didn't want Oregon to see Ohio State again. It's just that even after Oregon beat Ohio State, Oregon focused on outright getting to that Big Ten championship game, winning a national championship, etc. We're not in it to start some new fights and whatever. It's just win, win, win. And so this, of course, was basically their Super Bowl at the time. And like I said, Michigan came to play. 13-10, of course, was the final score. After the game, Michigan getting the win, like what's been happening the last go to the center field, and that's kind of all she wrote. You get bragging rights on this, etc. But Ohio State took umbrage to it and decided to start a fight with University of Michigan, to which case I remember a specific quote by Scott Bakula from the college football movie Necessary Roughness, to which case after the Texas the players started for whatever. Scott back and basically says, "Wow, you guys have a lot of energy considering the fact that we just got our asses kicked." And that was basically the scenario that happened with Ohio State. And of course, there was the scene of Ryan Day just kind of looking on, not controlling the situation, not controlling his players, not telling them to go back to the locker room and forget about this, etc. And then, of course, it didn't really help that the Fox Sports broadcast crew of Gus Johnson. But here's the reality on this. And you're a 20 plus point favorite to beat this other team and you lose, the road team has every goddamn right to do whatever the hell they want. And planting a flag at midfield is not a big deal. Like, it's cool, it's kind of dorky at the same time, but the reality on this is it's not like they're busting out a can of spray paint and putting like a big M at center field. All they're doing is symbolically planting a flag at midfield. And practice and state of pressure they had on them with all the implications in regard to Big Ten championship, in regard to possible playoff and national championship concerns, took umbrage with this, had a big deal about it, had a big fit, had a big meltdown on the field. But other schools, of course, over the weekend did the exact same thing. We saw a problem with the University of Florida game. We saw a problem with the University of North Carolina for the exact same thing. They were the hosts, and the road team came in and won, did the flag plant. Big deal. Let the kids do it. It's hilarious. It's fun. But at the end of the day, if you don't want this to happen, when the is knocking on your door and, establishes as, this is our home now, then you really can't say much about it. So is and or fight breaks out after this. My God. But the reality on this is I was talking about in regard to Ryan Day, of course, Ohio State head coach, 1-4 in his career against Michigan, 47-1 against every other team in the Big Ten. And of course, we all know who that one is. That's right, your University of Oregon. So, needless fact that they're currently A-10. Ohio State fans, of course, are calling for the head of Ryan Day just because this was kind of the final straw, at least in their minds. But the reality on it is Ryan Day is still doing a pretty solid job considering the fact that the shoes he had to fill, of course, were Urban Meyers, who left in a bit of controversy, et cetera, et cetera. Big Show chiming in says, Ben, remember the name Tyler Warren? I will, only because you told me to. But Ryan Day cannot win in big games, and so I can totally understand both sides of the coin in regard to why fans want to see him go. Of course, the biggest win that Ohio State had this season was the court and set them up perfectly for this potential rematch with Oregon in the Big Ten championship. But as I'll get to in a little bit, Ohio State, of course, beat undefeated Indiana last week, which put them in this position, knocked Indiana back quite a bit. Then, of course, Penn State had to beat Maryland this weekend to lock them into the Big Ten championship, et cetera, et cetera. So at the end of the day, Ohio State is still primed to make the playoff, to still potentially make a run. But of course, where they're going to fall within the seeding format is a bit of a question mark, and that has Ohio State fans concerned. So rightfully so. But moving on to the rest of the college football scenarios, Colorado 52-0 over Oklahoma State. Big game from Shedeur Sanders and, of course, from the Heisman favorite Travis Hunter, who had 116 yards in the air and 3 touchdowns received. Not to mention he had an interception this game too. So the Heisman race tightening up quite a bit, more than likely not in the favor of Austin Janti, but of course, there is Boise State, who played against Oregon State, Oregon's former Civil War rival. Boise State put it on 34-18, and there he is, Ashton Janti, 226 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So, of course, I talked about this a couple weeks ago in regard to etc. You can make the argument doing both positions really well. Is he the best at both positions? Not necessarily. But the fact that he's doing top 10 potentially for both is a pretty big deal. But then, of course, there's Ashen Janti. And I brought up this graphic just because the fact that I had to really kind of like illustrate this point. Uh, as you can see, of course, after a player's name indicates bowl stats are included. So at the moment, Ashton Janti for an entire season of collegiate football, 2,288 yards. That puts him at number 5 all time, most yards in a season for a running back, not to mention all the touchdowns that he scored on top of which, too. But of course, the high water mark is Josh and Jonty came into Oregon State, but Barry Sanders did in 11 games. And then not to mention, if we're going to add bowl stats onto which as well, Barry Sanders and Oklahoma State did go to their bowl game, to which case Barry ran for about 300 plus yards and scored 5 touchdowns. So realistically, Barry Sanders more. So, which really Barry Sanders had as a running back. But Melvin Gordon for Wisconsin, nothing to sniff at. Kevin Smith for UCF. Marcus Allen, of course, Hall of Famer for college football and the NFL. And then, yeah, Ashton Janti. But realistically, of course, Dylan Gabriel and Cam Ward were in the mix as well. But I'll get into details as far as why I feel like they're kind of eliminated. Like they'll be invited to New York for the ceremony, but I don't feel like they either of them have a shot at the Heisman Trophy anymore. But I'll get into that a little bit. Ole Miss 26-14 over Mississippi State. Kind of surprising, and it wasn't a bigger margin of victory for them, especially considering the fact that head coach Lane Kiffin is beginning on his high horse as a 9-3 team, going off about how they should be ranked higher than they are because they're sitting at 14 right now. But blah blah blah. Don't lose games. That's about it. This fucking game, though, I didn't realize this was a Friday game. Because Black Friday, more specifically, I was working at the store, but then I went out with some friends afterward. And so it was about halftime when I realized, like, oh my God, this game is actually going on right now. So, of course, I spent the rest of the game watching from my phone as we went bar to bar. Georgia Tech had a significant lead in this game. And despite the fact that this game was in Athens, Georgia, very big surprise. And I was talking with a few people, and I talked about this as my lock of the week last week when I get to Ben's bets. I said Georgia Tech was going to cover the spread. I had no intention of them actually winning this game, but I knew 19 and a half points for Georgia Tech. Oh, yeah, that's going to be an easy one to cover for them. Rightfully so. They only lost by 2 points. But more importantly, there were a few calls in this game that definitely went Georgia's way where it seemed like the NCAA and the SEC were definitely trying to get Georgia into the playoff as best as they possibly could, because if they would have taken this loss to Georgia Tech, more than likely it would have fallen out of that scenario. But, it is what it is. And one moment in particular that should have been flagged was that last fumble by Georgia Tech when they were up by a touchdown. And there was a clear targeting, which forced him to fumble the ball. That was not called, and whatever. Then we get 8 overtimes, 8 goddamn overtimes. And I know a lot of people hate after the second overtime, you just go to 2-point conversions, whatever. I don't mind it because the last thing I want to do is just completely gas and exhaust everybody because, I mean, that's already kind of happening after playing 60 minutes of football. Then additional overtimes where you have to go 25 yards to either score a touchdown, field goal, etc., and then defend. So doing the 2-point conversions from overtime 3 in the NFL format. So let's Tech had so many opportunities to ice this game, and it's super unfortunate. And yes, I was hitting up to saw the high. I know he was proud of Georgia's performance, and so was I. I mean, hey, cover the spread, like I said you would. Vanderbilt losing to Tennessee by 13 points, 36-23 final score there. As you can see, after the first quarter, Vanderbilt was up 17-7. Tennessee just back, scored all the points. Vanderbilt did eventually score again in the fourth quarter, but little too much. South Carolina with the this is another guy predicted would happen. So there's my friend Alex in Las Vegas, who I occasionally throw money at and say, hey, put money on these bets, et cetera, et cetera. And the bet that I meant to hit him up about, I had put it together in my BetMGM app. I was going to take a screenshot and send it to him, but I completely forgot because I had work on Black Friday at Great Mall. And the bet was, it was a 4-leg parlay, all money line, all underdogs, of course, because that's the way I roll. Georgia Tech, Michigan, Syracuse, South Carolina. Yes, Georgia Tech did lose on Friday night, but the amount of agony I would have gone through just during that game if I'd actually put the money on. Other than that, I mean, I was just entertained by the game altogether. But if I actually was able to get that bet in, which was $5, because I usually just throw $5 on these things. Had Georgia Tech won, it would have put me in a prime position to win $4,000. And then here's one of the legs, South Carolina winning. Michigan obviously got the win as well. Then we'll talk about the Syracuse game here as soon as I get to it, which is a little bit. Illinois 38-28 over Northwestern. Arizona State, the darlings of the Big 12. No, it's not Colorado. No, it's not BYU. It's Kenny Dillingham and the Arizona State Sun Devils. 49-7 victory over Arizona. We will be seeing them this Saturday in the Big 12 championship. Good for them. Arkansas slightly losing to Missouri 28-21. Arkansas had plenty of opportunities to take this game, but they blew it. Here it is, Syracuse, Miami. This was a hell of a game. And that last scoop and score to put Syracuse up for like basically good, especially considering that Syracuse, a couple plays before that, were driving, going to score a touchdown. There was a fumble by them. Miami recall back on the scoop and score and take the lead. Absolutely incredible. Because the fact that this game was in Syracuse and after the loss that Miami took to Georgia Tech a couple weeks ago, I felt like Miami was primed to lose again. There were many losses they should have been handed throughout this season, but they had miracle victories, quote unquote. But I felt in this case, Syracuse, solid team, solid bounce back team, former Ohio State quarterback leading them. And then they got the 4-point win. So that was 3 legs that would have hit. And the only one that would that missed was Georgia Tech losing by 2 goddamn points in 8 overtimes. Oh, God. I mean, I'm glad I didn't lose the $5 on it, but like I said, I wish I had the ticket to show you guys to prove that I did it. But like I said, I didn't send it in. I forgot to hit him up about it until I realized the game was on Friday and already started. So that was my bad on that one. So anyway, moving along. SMU beating the brakes off of the University of California at Berkeley, 38-6. SMU going to the ACC title game to take on Clemson. Big surprise there, actually. Alabama, 14-point victory over in-state rival Auburn. So 28-14 there. Penn State beat the shit out of Maryland. God damn it. Despite the fact that Maryland was up at the end of the first quarter, I had a little bit of faith in the Terrapins. I was hoping this was going to help out and somehow Indiana was going to backdoor their way into the Big Ten championship, which is the game that I wanted to see. Especially considering the season that Indiana had, but didn't happen. Notre Dame taking down USC in Los Angeles, 49-35. Goddamn you, USC. You fucked this entire Pac-12 conference up, you and UCLA, and you put this fucking season up this year? Pathetic. I'm just glad that Oregon is in the position that they're in because I know they didn't particularly want to go, but they were put in a financial situation where they had to go. Same with Washington. But yeah, USC, UCLA, fuck both of you for starting this whole chain of events. But there it is, Indiana 66-0 over Purdue. Um, yeah, it's not fair to Indiana. I mean, you lose to Ohio State. Yeah, I get it. Ohio State beat Penn State, but Indiana and Penn State did not play each other. And so there's a whole list of scenarios that worked out. And so Indiana is not playing in the Big Ten championship game. Yes, they had a much easier schedule than Ohio State and Penn State and Oregon did for that matter. But still, I felt like it should have been Oregon and Indiana in the Big Ten championship. So Texas wins by 10 over Texas A&M. Another game where the Aggies of Texas A&M had plenty of opportunities to take a lead, keep this game closer, but mistake after mistake after mistake. Logan Herrera, I don't see him in the chat, but I know he's still reeling about this one. He's an Aggie alumni. Just dumb that it happened. Iowa State taking down Kansas State 29-21. Kansas State, so many opportunities to tie or take the lead in this game, and they blew it. God damn it. And then UNLV taking down Nevada. No surprise there, 38-14. UNLV, amazing season they've had this year, despite the early season controversies with some of their players and NIL money, etc. But good to see UNLV sports back in the mix. And then I think this was the last game of the weekend. BYU 30-18 victory over the University of Houston. And another game where a fracas broke out. Don't fight Mormons. We'll put it that way. They will kick your ass. But anyway, this, of course, was the best game of the weekend, in my personal opinion, besides the Michigan-Ohio State game. Oregon getting revenge on the University of Washington, finally. My friend Jared, who's in the chat, he was at this game. I opted not to go, but 49-21 was the final score. Dylan Gabriel, 209 in the air, 2 touchdowns, not to mention 20 yards rushing with the touchdown. But Jordan James, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day for him. No Winnington, 67 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown for him. Same with the backup of backups, Riggs. Got in during garbage time, and hey, if that's the future of running for Oregon beyond no Winnington, I ain't mad about it. But yes, Ducks, congratulations, 12-0 on the season. We get to bust those shirts back out again that we had back in 2010. Of course, I don't have mine anymore because I definitely outgrew it years ago because it was a schmedium. But yeah, this is what we got primed for this Saturday. Georgia versus Texas in the SEC championship game. Oregon versus Big Ten, or Oregon versus Penn State in the Big Ten. SMU versus Clemson, ACC, and Arizona State versus Iowa State. Based on how I want this one to break down of who I'm hoping for, I'm hoping Georgia, Oregon, SMU, Arizona board there. I still don't think Texas is for real. And I know a lot of other people kind of feel the same way, especially these last couple of weeks where it's like they've gotten in some close games and probably should have taken a loss or another loss at some point. But I feel like Georgia, under the guise of under Kirby Smart, are going to just beat the brakes off of Texas. So you'll love to see it if it happens. Anyway. Prime ducking the ex-wife on senior day. Forgot about that. That's great. All right, on the NFL, Thanksgiving Day football, always good football. Detroit Lions beating the Chicago Bears 23-20. Eberflus getting the axe finally the day after. Bears fans have been calling for his head at least for a year now. But this one got down pretty effing close toward the end. Just piss poor clock management on behalf of Caleb Williams and Eberflus, of course. I cannot believe the Lions did not cover the spread. They've been blowing the doors off of everybody, but for whatever reason, they just couldn't beat the brakes off of the Bears, and that upset me. I think the spread was like 11.5 in that game, and I definitely took the Lions for it. Cowboys 27-20 over the New York Giants. No real surprise there. But I will say under Brandon Rush, like the Cowboys offense seems to be humming pretty well. CeeDee Lamb was like non-existent in the second half, which I'm a bit confused by. So he may have a lingering injury that he's got going that wasn't announced or anything like that. But overall, every other receiver and the running game seemed to work pretty well for the Cowboys. Giants, even under Drew Lock, just couldn't get things done. A lot of interceptions that were thrown in this game by Drew Lock, but hey, first start that he's gotten in well over a year. So it happens. Green Bay Packers in the cold tundra of Lambeau Field, 30-17 victory over the Miami Dolphins. Kind of surprised it wasn't more, but Jacobs and the running game for the Packers got the job done. Jordan Love actually had a still pretty decent game throwing, but overall it was the run game that took down the Dolphinos. This one was taking place while I was stuck in the parking lot at Great Mall for about 2 hours, and I'm not exaggerating that time frame. Chiefs with a 19-17 victory over the Raiders. Spread in this game was 13.5 in favor of the Chiefs, and I definitely took the Raiders for this one. Raiders got boned at the end. There was a false start whistle that was blown before the play officially got off that somehow changed into a fumble. And whatever the NFL is doing for whatever reason to allow the Chiefs to continue winning games, I don't get it. Like, I get that Patrick Mahomes is basically in every goddamn NFL related themed commercial that we got going on right now. So they're trying to push the dollars as much as possible. But my God, I'm fucking tired of it. And I think the bigger thing is I just hate the color red. Like, I really do. And so seeing the Chiefs week after week after week escape the jaws of defeat the way that they do is so goddamn frustrating. Somebody please take down the Chiefs in the playoffs, like early on. Texans 23-20 victory over the Jaguars. Controversy when a defender for the Texans, Aziz, I'm forgetting his last name, of course, went late hit, quote unquote, on Trevor Lawrence and concussed him. And of course, the dialogue that's developed from this is when is too late for a quarterback to hit the deck and give himself up on a slide. I mean, it was a bang bang play. I can understand both parties being upset by what happened because Aziz got kicked out of the game, but the reality and especially the speed at which the play took place, like, I don't feel like Aziz did necessarily anything wrong other than, hit a little bit too high up on Trevor Lawrence's head. Yeah, you can flag that, which they did, and penalize them as a personal foul. But in regard to the timing of when he laid the hit, no. Lawrence gave himself up way too late on that one, which that is a lingering problem with quarterbacks at the collegiate level in the NFL, but I see it more at the NFL level where, Pat Mahomes is a prime example of this, not to bring him and the Chiefs back into this mix of the times where it's like he's running toward the sideline, giving himself up. And so the defense, just, hangs back a little bit because, like, okay, you're running out of the bounds. We're not going to lay a hit on you. And then he turns on a dime and just runs down the field. And it's like, how is a defender when you're not allowed to basically hit the quarterback anymore? And same in this scenario, you don't know if Dude Pal's going to slide for real or not because thankfully the NFL is flagging quarterbacks who do the fake slide and keep running, but you still have to put a hand on them. So there's a lot of details that need to be ironed out with this to be successful, whatever. Colts 1-point victory over the Patriots, 25-24, touchdown and a 2-point conversion to end it. Incredible work by the Colts. I was pissed at this one because I had the Colts -2.5. It's like tie the fucking game and then win it in overtime, and I would have been much happier, but they didn't do it. So screw them. Chargers 17-13 victory over the Falcons, despite the fact that once again, Justin Herbert having only one receiver in McConkey, no other player is giving him a hand. God, Kirk Cousins 4 interceptions on the day, including a pick 6. Justin Herbert, I love you. I feel so bad for you. I just wish you had better players around you. I wish you were in the era of when Phillip Rivers had Antonio Gates and, a solid receiving core. Like, why can't we get that for Justin Herbert? My God. Seahawks come behind win 26-21 over the Jets, including a 93-yard interception from a 300-plus pounder First time in NFL history, a interception or a pick six by a 300 plus pounder from over 90 yards out occurred. So good job on the Seahawks there. Commanders beat the piss out of the Titans 42-19. No real surprise there. Steelers pulling out the win. Russell Wilson, hell of a game. I thought I had a stat line there, but over 414 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Anybody who thought his career was over beyond Denver, foolish. But great win for David Kearns and the Steelers, 44-38 there. The Bengals just look worse and worse as time goes on. Vikings, last minute touchdown for them, 23-22 final score there. I had the Cardinals plus 3.5, so worked out either way for me. The Rams came back and beat the Saints with I'm not necessarily last minute touchdown, but fourth quarter touchdown to take the lead. Of course, Taysom Hill is going to be outed back the wrong way. Ugh. But 21-14 victory for the Rams. And my Bucks, my goddamn Buccaneers, making me sweat, making me pissed off, making me hate Todd Bowles week after week, because all season long I've been saying, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Like, it's not to say that Baker Mayfield isn't doing a great job at quarterback, but Jesus, you got Rashad White and Bucky Irving, 2 solid running backs. Fucking use them. And he's finally doing it now. Prime example was this last weekend. Bucky Irving, 152 yards on the ground, 33 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. Rashad White, 76 yards on the ground, and actually had some pretty decent run after catch plays as well. But Baker Mayfield, 2 picks, 235 yards in the air, 1 touchdown. And it took a 51-yard field goal to put it in overtime. And then Buccaneers got the ball, kicked a field goal, missed it. Panthers marched the field. Thankfully, the Buccaneers forced a fumble to then get back down to the other end of the field thanks to a Rashad White 30-yard plus run. Kicked the game-winning field goal. That's all she wrote, 26-23. Defense. My God, you need Todd, if you want to fix something, fix the fucking defense, please. It's pissing me off. But I got to say, what's his face? Oh my God. Quarterback for the Panthers. I don't know why I'm spacing on his name right now. Oh my God. He's improved significantly. Significantly. I gotta look it up now, unless somebody want to throw it in the comments for me. Please. Keep the Bryce. Fuck. Panthers QB. Bryce Young. Okay, I knew I was half right there. Bryce Young. Getting benched over a month ago, then putting Andy Dalton in. He had 1 great game and then he fizzled out. So then he put Bryce Young back in, and he's getting it. He's getting it. Happy for him, because he was just looking lost and sad, and glad to see he's doing well with that. So I kind of expect bigger things with the Panthers next season with them, which sucks because they're in the same division as the Buccaneers. But anyway, Eagles 24-19 victory over the Ravens. Hated this result because I had the Ravens minus 2.5. Ravens offense just couldn't get anything done. And then Justin Tucker just missing extra points, multiple field goals, very unbecoming of him. That is just the story of the season, of just reliable kickers just melting down at the worst possible times. But yeah, Eagles get the 5-point victory in Baltimore. The Bills beat the shit out of the Niners. My God, I hate myself for this one because I had the Bills minus 6.5. But then when I saw McCaffrey and Brock Purdy back, it's like, you know what? I'm changing my pick to Niners plus 6.5. What the fuck? Because then obviously McCaffrey fucked his PCL up again. He's done for the year. Brock Purdy, just a bad game. Nobody could get any passing done whatsoever. So it just became a run attack pretty much the entire game, which is hilariously fun. But the Bills were able to get it more accomplished than the Niners were. Hence a 25-point victory for them in Buffalo. There you go. And I got to bring up this stat line because it's gonna come in handy at the end of the show. So Josh Allen, 148 yards passing, and Josh Allen, 18 yards rushing. Keep that in mind. But 2 touchdowns in the air for Josh Allen, and he also had a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown. The receiving touchdown, of course, came back on a pitch play from Amari Cooper, to which case Josh Allen, first player in NFL history to get to throw a touchdown, run for a touchdown, and receive a touchdown. Fucking crazy, man. Obviously, it's happened in college football multiple times, but the fact that this is the first time in the NFL, crazy. And then, of course, there was this game last night. So I had the Browns plus 5.5. And with 2 minutes left to go in this goddamn game, the Browns were down by 2. So it's like, all right, even if for whatever reason Jameis Winston and the Browns turn the ball over, all the Broncos have to do is just ice it. Granted, they had to force the Browns to use all their timeouts because they still had 3 left, but I felt like I was on easy street with this one. No big deal. But then Jameis Winston throws a pick at about the 40-yard line. The Browns 40-yard line, that is. And then, of course, Dude Powell caught it, just gets up and runs at the end zone. Fuck. So now it's 41-32. Could not believe nobody touched him. Could not believe nobody caught up to him and touched him. And that just completely derailed it. But then, of course, Browns get the ball back, march back down the field, get down to the 2-yard line after a pass interference call. Still got 2 timeouts in their pocket, 2 yards to go. And in my head, I'm like, run the fucking ball. You got Nick Chubb. 2 yards? Why the hell not? Hell, Jameis Winston keeper. He had some decent runs throughout the game. But of course, Judy was the player of the game with 235 yards and 1 touchdown. But what does fucking Jameis do? Throws a pick on the end zone on the first play. That's it. That's all she wrote. But I'm not making fun of Jameis Winston. Like, it's a hilarious situation to lose this, but I feel fucking awful for him. And especially his presser afterward, where he's just talking about, like, pray to God to not throw any more pick sixes and stuff like that. Like, it's funny, but you have to feel bad for him because he's trying his ass off. And his stat line for a loss is insane. 497 yards in the air, 4 touchdown passes, but 2 pick sixes, 3 interceptions overall, but 2 of them were pick sixes and just cost him the game. Oh my God. And at the end of the season, Jameis Winston's a free agent, and I kind of look forward to see where he ends up next. Maybe the Browns will keep him just because of whatever the hell's going on with Deshaun Watson from a legal standpoint, but then from his injury standpoint. And I think realistically, like, Jameis seems to be enjoying his time in Cleveland. I feel like if he was the named starter going into next season, I could see the Browns actually doing pretty well with that. But we'll just have to wait and see. So anyway, as of right now, here are the standings for the NFL. Bills, of course, clinching the AFC East, first team to clinch a spot this early in the season. Because 5-game lead, 5 games to go. It's over for that. AFC West, 11-1 for the Chiefs, of course, but 8-4 for the Chargers, 8-5 for the Broncos. Chargers still have getting close to a playoffs position lock, but definitely not a division lock. 9-3 for them in the AFC North, followed by the Ravens at 8-5 in the AFC South. Texans still on top, miraculously at 8-5, followed by the Colts at 6-7, and of course the NFC side of things. Eagles 2-game lead over the Commanders, even though the Eagles still have a game in hand. NFC West, Seahawks starting to get a little bit of a lead there. Niners still only 2 back despite being in last place in that division, which is still hilarious. Lions, Vikings, Packers. Not a lot of separation there. Lions, of course, 11-1, Vikings 10-2. All 3 teams I feel like are going to make the playoffs. They should. And of course, the NFC South, there's a tie between the Falcons and the Buccaneers twice. They have the tiebreak at the moment. So we'll see what happens with Kirk Cousins and the future of the Atlanta Falcons going forward. Please keep losing games, Falcons. That's all I can ask for. NBA, here's your top 15. Wizards managed to go the entire month of November without a goddamn win. They are 2-16 on the season and just doing whatever they can to lock up the that draft spot or lottery spot. probably going to get the number 1 just based on how pathetic this season is for them. And then, of course, the 76ers at 4-14, doing a pretty terrible job themselves. But 18-3 for the Cavs, only a game up on the Boston Celtics. Over on the West, Warriors kind of starting to slip a little bit, Thunder on top. But hey, how about those fucking Houston Rockets tied, or only a half game back? Sorry, 15-6 for them, only one additional loss because Thunder still have a game in hand. But hell of a turnaround, hell of a turnaround. And as much of a scumbag as Ime Udoka kind of is off the court, he's a damn good coach on the court. And I'm not surprised to see Houston, especially with the rebuild they did and with Udoka as their coach, doing as well as they are. So good for them. Hey, Lakers are in 8th. Awesome. Keep dropping. NHL side of things, Leafs still on top in the Atlantic Division, even with a game in hand. You love to see it over in the East. New Jersey Devils, of course, at the top of the Metropolitan Division. I'm okay with that. Minnesota Wild, top dogs in the Central Division, finally getting a little bit of an edge separation on the Winnipeg Jets just because they have goal differential right now. And of course, the Vegas Golden Knights and the LA Kings, top dogs in the Pacific. Sharks, get your shit together. Although they got a ways to go for that. But anyway, EPL, Brighton, Southampton tie over the weekend. Not a fan of this. What the hell? Bournemouth blowing out Wolverhampton 4-2. Newcastle Crystal Palace took Crystal Palace stoppage time in the second half to force the draw on this one. Really surprised in Newcastle screwing that one up. Nottingham Forest back in the win column with a 1-0 victory over Ipswich Town. Brentford 4-1 over Leicester City. Arsenal back in the win column 5-2 over West Ham. Just blew the doors off of that. Chelsea, come on, you Blues. 3-0 victory over Aston Villa. You love to see it. Tottenham, despite blowing the doors off of Man City the previous week, they can only force a draw against Fulham. Even though they had 7+ minutes to score an extra goal when Fulham only had 10 dudes on the pitch, they could not pull it off. Shocking. Man United going back to their old ways, putting up 4 over Everton with the shutout there. Liverpool also shutting out Man City. Man City just on a slide right now, and I ain't mad about it. 2-0 victory for them. Mo Salah continues to be the goal-scoring phenom that he once was again. Today, there was some additional games, so another reason why I'm glad I waited to do the show today. Crystal Palace 1-0 victory over Ipswich Town. Stuttered there. Leicester City on the bounce back after getting the doors blown off of them. 3-1 victory over West Ham. And of course, here's the standing. Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Brighton, the top 4. Look at Man City at 5. Fuck yeah. The only reason, actually, I don't even know why. I don't know why Arsenal, well, I think it's alphabetical, to be honest. Because Arsenal and Chelsea, like, they played each other this year, and it was a 1-1 draw. Granted, it was at Stamford Bridge, so you could say, well, Arsenal got a goal on the road, but their goal differential is the same. Their record's the exact same, so I think it's just alphabetical. Like, I feel like technically Chelsea and Arsenal are both tied for second, but whatever. Bottom 3, of course, the main thing to focus on, but we still got about 25 games left to go in the season. Southampton, Ipswich Town, and Wolverhampton in the relegation zone. Ben's Bets, your favorite part of the show, everybody. Georgia Tech covering the spread. Love to see it. Spurs beating up on the Jazz last week, but Brighton, Southampton. Brighton, how the fuck do you tie Southampton? This should have been a lock. A lock. And of course, the Saints blowing it to the Rams. What the hell was I thinking there? But then again, if Taysom Hill didn't get his knee exploded, it would have been a different game. So I'm blaming that. Anyway, my lock of the week this week, ACC championship game. I've got SMU beating Clemson. I hope to God it happens. Brentford getting a draw against Aston Villa. I believe that's tomorrow. I'm going bold. Milwaukee Bucks are going to beat the Boston Celtics. What is that, 3 days from now? Oddly enough, the Bucks are on a bit of a heater right now, so I kind of think the momentum's going to continue. And then, of course, Vikings versus Falcons in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins comeback home game. I think the Falcons or the Vikings are going to be taking this one against Kirk and the Falcons. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, Ben's bets. Obviously, you guys make fun of me every week for certain. Yes, that's right. Aziz did get a 3-game suspension for that hit on Trevor Lawrence. My name is Eric. Forgot about that. You guys always make fun of me, my Ben's bets portion, blah blah blah. But Austin got into the mix over the weekend and had himself a dandy little parlay that he put together. So got to throw that one at you guys to at least see the good parts and the bad parts of this bet. There's one part in particular which blew my mind, but as Austin immediately texted me about when he sent me the screenshot, he did not mean to do. So I'll take him at his word on that one. So here it is. The first 3 legs of the parlay were the Oregon-Washington game. Over 4.5 touchdowns for Oregon, easy. Covering the spread, which was 9.5, done. But for whatever reason, Austin had a mental lapse and he took the under 50.5 points in this game. Austin, what the fuck were you thinking, man? But there it is. He had $15, which would have got him 1,650. But that was the first part. The second part has to do with the Bills in the Niner game. So he had 225 plus yards passing from Josh Allen, James Cook anytime touchdown, Buffalo Bills money line, 25 plus yards rushing from Josh Allen, and Josh Allen anytime score. But of course, as we remember from what I talked about a little bit ago, obviously for Oregon, 49-21 is definitely the over 50.5. I'm going to be making fun of Austin for the next millennia based on that. But then more importantly, there it is, 148 yards passing for Josh Allen. Did not come close to the 225. And he only had 18 yards rushing. I'm surprised he didn't hit that one just based on the way that Allen was actually able to run the ball. But it is what it is. When you're betting underdog, ridiculous parlays like I do on an often basis, you're not going to hit all of them, if not many of them. So anyway, guys, I got to save this, upload it, and then jump into my Oregon gear, of course, for Duck Dynasty, flip the script, doing Penn State and Oregon in the Big Ten championship game this week. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. And as always, take it easy. And if you don't, take it sleazy. Peace.